Hi, I'm Thea Quiray Tagle, and I'm the curator of Afterlife We Survive, now on view at YBCA in person and online. As part of the digital programming for the exhibition, I'm having a series of short conversations with artists from the exhibition about their strategies of future thinking and survival. So today I've invited two artists from Afterlife, micha Cardenas and Jeremiah Barber, to answer a few questions about their work. Misha is an award-winning designer of augmented reality games and is a professor at UC Santa Cruz. And Jeremiah is a San Francisco-based artist who works in performance, sculpture, and video. And what's really exciting for me about both of their projects are that they're incredibly dynamic environments that help us not only rethink our relationships to animals, to plants, and to the natural world, but that they also allow us and help us to feel into these relationships by immersing ourselves into them. And Jeremiah's two virtual reality environments that he created just for Afterlife, that's titled Lightroom and Darkroom, are interactive sites of multi-species film production and can be experienced online through VR glasses or through your browser on the exhibition website. Meanwhile, Misha's Sin Soul, No Sun, is an augmented reality video game that invites us to journey with her avatar Aura and her dog Roja as they navigate wildfires and other natural and unnatural disasters. Sin Soul is projected quite large on the exterior of YBCA's building and is viewable at night. And for the full experience of the game, you can download it from the App Store and play it anywhere. So thank you so much, Jeremiah and Misha, for joining us today and for talking with me about your work. I wanted to maybe just start with the first question, which is around embodiments in both of your work. So even if we are experiencing both of your projects in augmented reality or in virtual reality, you're both artists who have a long history of working really intentionally with your bodies. And so in previous projects of yours that I've seen online and in person, these projects really force us, I think, as viewers to ask questions around intimate relationships and memory. And I'm thinking here of Jeremiah's other half orbit that you did in Southern Exposure with Ingrid Rojas Contreras. And, Misha, your project, Becoming Dragon, was really taking viewers right into this intense experience of gender transitioning through Second Life. And so with that, history of performance and embodiment, I'm wondering how your projects for Afterlife, which are an augmented reality or virtual space, how bodies still matter, right, to the ways that you make this work, or how we as viewers are supposed to experience the work.
Thank you so much for that question. I think for me that the body is really at the core of my thinking and art practice. I first sort of learned to be an artist, or at least was trained as an artist at UC San Diego with Ricardo Dominguez and the Electronic Disturbance Theater. So performance and using the body to make art was really like the first sort of frame that I found really generative and found that I could build an art practice around. I still do find inspiration from Deleuze and Guattari asking, let's not say what a body is, but what can a body do? Or let's not ask what a body is, but what a body can do. So that thinking about the potential of the body and that focus on process has been really important and generative for me. But of course it was like feminist and women of color feminist thinkers that really more brought the point for me that all thinking comes from the body. Unlike the, Western Enlightenment fantasy of having some floating virtual body that is not tied to our real bodies. Even our imagination of that body is only possible because we can feel our feet and hands and have some idea of what a body is. So much of Sin Soul was about, it's about bodily experiences of not being able to breathe or feeling fear and running from fire. And, partly about other people's experiences that I read in the news, like in Marin County, immigrants having to run literally to the ocean, to the water, because they couldn't go to shelters because of the ice agents there. And when I was making it, a part of why I wanted to use augmented reality was because I wanted to get the audience to move their bodies in new ways, not to just sit in front of a screen, even though I do a lot of that. But to move in new ways, like learning from Augusto Boal and Theater of the Oppressed, to think about how we can think in new ways by moving in new ways, and also hopefully to do something that was maybe even healing, because movement has been something really healing for me.
Something that's really interesting to me about this work and the show and some of the things that I've been looking at recently are this idea that performance is kind of bringing something unique into the digital space, which is a kind of like a really thoughtful approach to presence, and kind of a little bit ironically, one of the paths that kind of led me to the work that I made for Afterlife is just the recognition that presence in the public space has shifted, that we're not fully physically present when we're in spaces where we're interacting with people we don't know, and that we're now kind of our shifting idea of where we are is partially constantly online, and so I guess when I was kind of picturing this work and trying to imagine my audience and imagine the folks that are going to encounter this piece, I'm kind of picturing it from that same perspective of trying to imagine the full presence that happens in performance and the full embodiment that happens in performance.
So taking a step back and thinking about, again, both of your work and the body and performance and how that's had to shift, right, to in part accommodate this really strange pandemic quarantine reality. But your projects also have us question our personal and our working relationships with non-living or non-human living beings. So, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how your real life, non-virtual life experiences and relationships to these beings have shifted in the course of making these works.
Yeah, while I've been making this work, I've also been writing about just the same question. I love this question, and the complications that have arisen from trying to invite other living species into my art practice. There's a word that I'm kind of stuck on, which was told to me by Todd Oakley, who's an evolutionary biologist at UC Santa Barbara, which is called the Umwelt, which is the world as experienced by another organism. And the idea is that we don't really have the tools to kind of fully comprehend any other being, because our bodies don't match up, and that's this this kind of thought problem that we have. So with my work and with Lightroom, for example, we have this example of my cat devouring my plant sculpture that was intended to do something entirely different. And the cat had never intended to be part of the work. And it brought this kind of really amazing and instructive, and it threw a wrench in the system that I have, I guess kind of similar to how science operates. I kind of started with this question. I was working with a plant to kind of try and think how I might learn from a plant, how a plant reads sunlight. But I hadn't thought through the complexity of the relationships that exist in my laboratory studio. There are going to be interjections, and it's messy. And when you invite in this other living collaborator, you kind of get questions get answered with other questions. They don't come back as answers. That became a really big part of both of the pieces, Lightroom and Darkroom. There's a mess on the floor in each of those spaces. It's otherwise a very kind of clean 3D modeled environment, but each of them has this kind of mess on the floor, and that feels like very much like a part of what happens when you try and go about this process with this form of thinking that we've been taught, that that we can ask a question and receive a response. And I guess working with other species is kind of tells you that you can't expect that.
I've been inspired for a long time by Donna Haraway's writing, like in When Species Meet, she says that the partners do not precede the relating. So we don't become individually. We become with the beings around us, and I feel like that's true every day. The time that I might take in the morning to care for my dog and to be kind to her and to meet her needs shapes who I am. And I think that that's a point I've tried to get across in my writing, but also in Seen Soul, that how we treat non-human beings shapes us and really shapes our possibilities for survival. Like animals and plants, and I would say even AI, that, being cruel to an AI that doesn't know and doesn't feel still can affect us. So those are things I tried to address in Seen Soul. And yeah, I mean, just also trying to make art about my life. I mean, like, were you in Seattle in 2017?
Yeah.
When the wildfires were there? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I was, now it seems like everybody's going through this, of course. But I mean, at the time, being stuck inside for 2 weeks because of my asthma and the wildfires meant that Roja was my only companion. And getting out and walking her because she had to poop was the only reason I got outside, the only time I got outside. So it was really important for my survival and sanity to have this other being who needed me.
Thank you both for too brief of a conversation.